Yeah, most definitely. I just started recording, so our audio is being recorded right now. I
Okay.
got. I don't think I'm gonna use the screen recording on my phone right now, but I am recording the video too.
All
Um,
right.
so yeah, I mean, basically, you already know what I'm doing as far as building real estate. I kind of just want to talk about you and me, at least in the beginning. Me being Cameron, I'm your son. This is Chuck Maciel, and I kind of want to get more of your background as far as like me building the real estate program now to what it can be today in 2021. I'm rebuilding it in this program called Filemaker. I want to get more of your perspective on like why did you build a real estate program and when did you do it?
Well, the real estate program for me was trying to get it off of paper and pencil and automate it to a computer. And the biggest reason for that was being able to segregate and streamline the management of real estate. So, luckily for me, working in the grocery industry, um, the guy I worked with, Steve Easterling, he actually wrote programs for fun.
What year
And
was this?
that was back in I met Steve back in '96, and we got to talking about software around 1998. And in talking about the software, he had showed me some of the programs that he was working with, and I was very illiterate when it came to computers. I've done some CAD drawing in college, um, but didn't really know anything about using the personal computer to handle financing or anything like that. I was using a checkbook and a ledger to pay bills and manage my real estate, and it was almost like a ring binder tracking my expenses. And during that time, I mean, throughout the '90s, I did all my personal income taxes on my own, um, and and went through the spreadsheet, the Schedule E's, the 1040E, and did my own taxes from that perspective, and learning how to utilize um, the tax benefits of real estate through depreciation and write-offs. So as I started working more and more with Steve Easterling, he talked a little bit about programs on how you can utilize different programs for calculations. And and one of the biggest things at that time was like QuickBooks and different other different softwares for managing businesses, but they were so general. They weren't detail specific to an individual. They're very general.
Yeah.
So Steve actually had worked on some maintenance programs for um, um, for a couple of school districts for their mechanics to manage the repairs on the buses. And so when I told him about the real estate, I told him, I said, hey, I own like 12 rentals. I have repairs on them periodically. I collect rent. I pay bills. I have all these different categories of being able to have write-offs, and they range anywhere from driving to the property, collecting rent, driving to the bank to deposit, to driving to a hardware store to pick up supplies, driving back to the rental to do the work on it. Those items of mileage are actually write-offs, and not to mention the actual items purchased to do the repairs are write-offs. And he says, okay, well, what are you wanting to do? And I said, well, this is all handwritten down on a booklet. Is there any way that I can like get it onto a computer and isolate it per property? And he's like, well, of course you can. I do this one program for buses, and the school district has 50 buses, and they got to know what bus, what mileage, what was done on each one of the buses. He goes, that sounds a little bit like your real estate. So you just want to isolate what you're doing to the property, right? And I said, yeah. So, we sat and we talked for a little bit. He goes, well, come on over, look at what I got, tell me what you think, and we'll go from there. And it's like, all right, great. So I go over to his house, we look at the programs that he's written for the school district, and then he showed me some other money management programs he wrote for some supervisors for Stater Brothers. And these were guys that own small small businesses that they were trying to track their expenses and income and how they could utilize those items for their tax benefits. And so with the programs that he had already written, we had a foundation to follow from there to know where I wanted to go. So basically what Steve did is he took his school district program and took a couple of his small business management programs and basically united them together so that I could actually create my vision of the real estate program. And so what Steve did was this is over a course of probably a year, sitting with Steve 6, 7, 8 hours Saturday and Sunday with him, throwing ideas. He writes it, look at it, throw ideas, writes it, look at it, and then he takes whatever part of the program and says, take it home and jam it up. Do what you can to mess it up.
And this was around 98, 99, or 2000?
98, 99 when we started it.
98.
And so going into that year of 98, 99 is when he was working on the real estate program. And he got the majority of the real estate program dialed in for what my idea was at the time.
Yeah.
But as time progressed on and we started using the program more and more and more, then I went back to Steve saying, hey, how can we incorporate the tax forms into this? Because I'm still having to transfer all these numbers from the computer onto paper for my depreciation, and I got some depreciations I don't need. I can postpone them, and I got some that I need now, and I want to utilize it. But this form that the government uses, which is the Schedule E, it allows you 3 properties on it. I said I want to be able to input those from the program, and that took a while for him to do that because at first he was apprehensive on using the form.
Yeah.
Because wait a minute, this is a government form. I can't incorporate this. Well, why not? It's public domain. It belongs to everybody. Well, it's the IRS, and it's like, yeah, but it belongs to everybody. Well, I don't know, dude. It's funny because he got real nervous about it for some reason. And after a little bit of time, he says, all right, dude, I'll put it in. So he ends up printing up the Schedule E and creates the language behind that form in order to incorporate all the inputting we put in of the real estate so that I could actually just click a property on the top of Schedule E and it would autofill the the royalties, the rents, the advertising, the interest,
Yeah.
the repairs, the mileage, all those things would input instantly. I'd have to write nothing down now. And then as we progressed on getting that developed, which probably took about a good 3-4 months, incorporating all those things from all the properties, because now at this time, I think we had somewhere around 15 or 16 rentals.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of rentals now. So now you're not dealing with one Schedule E, when it's 3 per property, 3 per page.
Yeah.
Now you're dealing with 5-6 pages of Schedule E.
Yeah.
And so that whole culmination of using that software to input our expenses and then being able to export those expenses into our tax form was very beneficial because now you're not writing it down.
Yeah.
But then the real benefit that came out of this was when the idea came up, hey, what if I didn't need this deduction, Steve? Is there any way we can create a what if scenario? And his idea, what do you mean a what if scenario? Well, let's say this year I had $5,000 worth of write-offs on this property, but I only need $1,000 and I want to amortize that over the next 5 years. Is there any way that I can change that number just to see what my profit or loss is going to change to see if I want to take that from my personal income? Because the biggest thing for me was working at Stater Brothers, I had personal income. Well, not only did I have personal income, I also had passive income, which is real estate. So those are two different worlds altogether.
Yeah.
So as an employee, which is the highest tax you'll ever pay, is as an employee, I wanted to utilize as much of my passive income, which is investment income, with the write-offs of depreciation, which becomes a paper write-off, not a dollar write-off.
Yeah.
Which is something that really needs to be explained to people, the difference between the two. Now, the difference between the two is that if I go to Home Depot and I buy material, I spend dollars to get that material, that's a dollar write-off.
Yeah.
Whereas, according to the tax code for the IRS, on a Schedule E, you have depreciated value, where you take the property, you take the structure, not the land, and you get to depreciate that over 27.5 years, which gives you an annual dollar amount to write off. That becomes a paper write-off because you're not spending dollars to get that write-off.
Definitely.
So that was one of the greatest benefits for me, paying less personal income tax.
Yeah.
So, that right there, a lot of people misunderstand that whole idea. Like when the concept comes up that the rich don't pay taxes, well, yes and no. Because the idea of what the rich pay in taxes usually falls under business.
Mm-hmm.
Real estate is a whole different program. Because the way the tax code looks at it is that, yeah, you're going to get that depreciated value right now, but we're going to get our tax later from you, and it's going to be huge later on. Because once you depreciate that value of that property, now you're going to be taxed 100% on the income.
Yeah.
And so you take whatever your income is today, say 2021, and your income is $10,000 a year in income. You go 27 and a half years from now, that income is probably going to be closer to $100,000.
Yeah.
So they're looking at that number they're going to get. In the beginning, you're investing, you're adding to the economy, you're building wealth. They're going to get their tax eventually.
Yeah.
They're not going to get it at the beginning, which is fine, because they want to incentivize you to keep investing, because they know in the long term you're going to have a bigger chunk to get a piece of.
Definitely. So, creating more content, or more so some. I forgot the word I was going to say. Giving some more context to what we're talking about here. In the late '90s, you're working at Staters. You're mentioning Steve Easterling. Steve Easterling was a programmer in Microsoft Access. So Microsoft Access at the time, it's still around today. It's a great program. It's sophisticated for the Windows, and they don't have a Mac version. So like the computer I use is a Mac. Back in the day, you're probably starting that on like Windows 95, maybe Windows 2000 at the time. So the programming.
Windows 98.
Yeah, there you go.
That particular year going into, it went from 95. But Steve was always on the cutting edge of whatever the latest software was.
Yeah.
And he was using Visual Basics,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't realize that, hence the name Visual Basics, was a very simple program to use at the time. and it became easier and easier for programming later on.
Yeah. So Microsoft Access, and then like what I use today, FileMaker. So to give more context, like I was saying, like I stumbled around programming not the very traditional way. I remember the time like we started talking about this. I knew about website programming and stuff like that, and like how I'm dabbling in what I do now, which is database development. It's something that's not very common that people know about because it's not talked about a lot, and that's kind of what I want to do right now, is talk about it more so more small businesses understand the value in investing a small amount, which seems like a lot of money now, but if you look at the long-term perspective of business, it actually pays itself off down the line. So, but yeah, like you said, Microsoft Access on Windows 95 and Windows 98, always being on the cutting edge. Today, FileMaker is kind of like the new cutting edge to database design because you can have different operating systems. You have it on your iPhone now. We're working towards getting to the Android version, which we do have working. So what I want to talk more about today is your view on software today as it is. Like what we just talked about is kind of like on the back burner now. Like, oh, that's the software of the past of like developing custom software for your business and owning your software. The software that sits on your computer today, that idea of having a perpetual license is long past overdue, and this new idea of go to a website, create an account, put in your credit card information, and pay us per month or annually, and you'll always have to pay us either per month or annually for the lifetime of wanting to use our services. Now I understand the perspective on like the latest and greatest technology, and you and I have talked about this as far as like what latest and greatest technologies are going to be needed in real estate. So getting your input on real estate changing, like I know technology is going to change, the way we interact with technology is going to change, but the way we interact with real estate as far as finding the property, fixing the property, finding the tenant, renting it out, and collecting rent, that stuff's really not going to change, and it hasn't in the last 50 years
At least. And
so
actually longer than that. The funny thing about it is, though, when you're talking about real estate hasn't changed, dude, it hasn't changed since literally the beginning of time. Rentals have existed since the beginning of time.
yeah
And most of us don't understand that idea because they always look at it from the perspective of what our modern day housing tracts, communities, has only been around since the 50s.
yeah
Prior to the 50s, housing, communities didn't really exist that way. You built a house, it was custom built, and that was it. Every individual home was that way. But going back to what you're talking about, the technology of real estate, it's funny because you can take some of the most simplistic and the most complex of ideas that haven't changed in a century. I mean, drive a farming, they use tractors. That hasn't changed at all. And it's been that way. It went from the horse, dragging a plow to a tractor. It hasn't changed from a tractor in well over 140 years. So with that idea right there, for just basic people to understand, how has cutting your lawn changed?
yeah
You still use a lawnmower.
yeah
Even a robotic lawnmower is still a lawnmower. So the idea is this. What would you rather have? A gardener that you pay on a weekly basis to cut your grass? Or an automated lawnmower that cuts your grass and you bought it and own it?
yeah
So that would go back to the software. Real estate I don't foresee any really unusual changes other than how payment is made. But how payment is made for rent doesn't necessarily have to go through the software of managing your real estate.
yeah
Because that can actually just go through your banking system. But I guess the biggest thing for me in the idea of owning your software, nobody can manipulate it, nobody can infiltrate it, and nobody can take it from you. You own it.
yeah
So it'd be like you owning the lawnmower, owning the tractor. You own it.
Definitely.
Now, can it be stolen? Absolutely, it can be stolen. But your software, it's in your home. I mean,
Yeah.
no, it really is going to be hard to steal it. Now, if you're exposed to the internet and the way cyber crimes take place, you're exposed. Or not to mention, for whatever reason, let's just hypothetically say, you're using one of these organizations to manage your real estate, and you're paying them a monthly fee, and let's just speculate that you become a Robert Kiyosaki, and all of a sudden you own 7,000 rentals, and you're using this software, and for some reason the guy don't like you. What control do you have over your software now?
Yeah.
You don't.
Definitely.
So I would say, the importance of going back to ownership is very important versus the automated version of a real estate program. Now, I'm not saying that automated systems for software are not needed in some cases.
Definitely.
But for real estate, I don't see how you would want to expose yourself to those vulnerabilities of someone's decision, and we see it in everyday life today. Things that take place where somebody doesn't like your content, and all of a sudden, boom, you're out.
Yeah.
So why would you want to do that with your real estate?
Definitely. Yeah, I've like you said, as far as like owning it, I really like the idea of owning software, being big or small. I know there's ways around getting around, because even being a big guy, you can still be a big business with, let's say, like you said, 7,000 rentals, and still be technically online, but you can own your own server. And you can have the server in-house. The data's there. It cannot be tapped into based off the security standard that you have at that office, and the internet coming in and the internet going out. We can definitely figure out ways of securing that. But the data's there. It's in-house. It's not on anyone else's server. So there's ways to growing the idea of owning the software, perpetual license, never having to pay for it again, is possible even in today's standards. There's just more maintenance involved as far as but I mean, even at that, technology doesn't change as fast as people think it does, especially if you just keep it on your computer. Because going back, I mean, it's a sad story, but I mean, Steve passing away in 2005 due to a heart attack. But in 2005, all the way up until 2014, that software never underwent updates or changes through that, and it went through multiple different types of operating systems. That just goes to show you that technology will last a long time as long as we maintain it in certain areas.
Right. And we got to the point of actually managing, I think it was 46 rentals. So I mean, I don't know, in the realm of people out there, if you're comparing it to a Robert Kiyosaki with 7,000 rentals, 46 rentals is nothing.
Yeah.
But to the average Joe, 46 rentals, you're Robert Kiyosaki to an average Joe.
Yeah.
So that idea right there, it becomes that focus on, what do you want? And the thing about it is that the software wasn't limited to 46 rentals.
Mm-hmm.
That's just as many as I had at the time.
Yeah.
And there was no issue with managing that. And that whole idea to have more rentals than that, sky's the limit to the individual. Yeah. But again, why would somebody in real estate need to be online?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this in the past, kind of getting to the point to why I'm building software now. In the beginning of this, I used to work with my father. I used to work we drove tractors. My dad still drives tractors to the day. My dad still swings a hammer today, building houses in Hawaii. I did all that stuff, but I wanted to take a bet on myself and try to build out software. And like you just said about this idea of why would real estate ever be online? Now, I get there's some reasons to why some things should be online, like, okay, advertising your rental property to find a tenant. Yes, we need some type of system for that. But we have resources like Zillow, and there's like home pads, hot pads, and stuff like that. These are systems that allow you to also manage your real estate, but also market your real estate. So as far as marketing and then maybe banking, those are probably two key pairs that should be online to streamline your rental income and advertising. But we feel that everything else, as long as you're a small guy, like maybe 20, like you said, maybe you said 46 rentals and less, 50 rentals and less, you can manage by yourself on your own personal computer, cell phone, or iPad. There's no reason for you to be on a need to know basis. And that's what I think that a lot of these big corporations are selling. Like, basically, you are the tenant to their system, and they just keep renting out the system to most people. Aren't we in the business of real estate to own assets and not have liabilities like the $10.99 a month or $9.99 a month or $100 a month, whatever it is? We should be in the business of owning.
Is looking at it from the perspective too, is that if you're in the business of having rentals, you're not in the business of having overturns in your tenants. So you want long-term tenants.
Yeah.
Meaning you're not a hotel. See, a hotel deals with people on a daily basis. Rentals, you're dealing with people on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
I mean, we have tenants that are 12, 13, 15 years old that have been tenants. How much do I need a real estate program to be online to manage somebody who's been a tenant for 15 years?
Yeah.
Versus a hotel that's dealing with people daily.
Yeah.
Repetitively on a daily basis. I understand that. You own hotels. You probably have to be online to monitor what your hotel is doing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of activity. Whereas if you're a landlord, you're looking at having tenants move in, and by the glory of just great luck, never move out.
Yeah.
You know, that's your goal. They don't move out. You get to increase the rent over time progressively, but they never move out. That's your goal. So to need a software program that needs to be online, that you need to be, if you need to check on your tenant on a daily basis, there's something seriously wrong with your management.
Yeah.
And the key thing about it, about the software though, is that the software has been set up so that you can maintain what you're doing on your property. And again, you know, a lot of people don't understand something. It was really, really funny to people when they think about investing in real estate. They always think of the negative before they think of the positive. They always think about, well, I don't want to get a call in the middle of the night of a leaky toilet. Okay, well, stop and think for a minute. How long have you lived in your house?
Yeah.
10 years. When's the last time you had a leaky toilet? I don't remember. When's the last time you had a leaky faucet? I don't remember. When was the last time you had a water heater issue? It's been years. Well, guess what? When you have a rental property, you pretty much have the same situation.
Yeah.
So what part, this is why the whole real estate program of management doesn't change, because people live, and unless you don't maintain your property, if you don't maintain your property, then you're going to have problems, which is no different than your vehicle. If you don't take care of your car, you're going to have problems constantly.
Yeah.
But if you maintain your vehicle like you're supposed to, it's going to last. You're not going to have any problems with it. So the same thing with your rental property. If you maintain your rental property and your tenants are good tenants, you're going to spend very little time utilizing that software.
Yeah.
That you don't want to be paying a monthly fee for that software when you don't need to.
Yeah.
Now you're having an expense for something that's basically doing what you can have on your computer already, doing it on its own.
Yeah.
As needed.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things on it. And then along with the added benefit of being able to utilize the software to do your income taxes for your rentals.
Yeah.
So now you're saving money from having to pay an accountant,
And
or having
time.
to pay a CPA, or having to pay somebody to handle those taxes for you.
Yeah.
The software will actually utilize that and be able to work with what you need,
Yeah.
not what somebody else tells you need. You look at it from the perspective of, okay, here's my income, here's my depreciated loss, here's my expense on these houses. Do I need them or I don't need them?
Yeah.
So this becomes a software program that actually becomes an educational program for the individual investor.
Yes. So it's actually a really cool idea of owning software, especially the way you started. Like originally in the beginning of this conversation, you said that you met Steve working at Stater Brothers. So this idea of I mean, at the time, the online version wasn't there, so that it was your only option to create a local on your computer version. But even today's standards, especially in today's standards, with inflation going up and minimum wage not really increasing with inflation, and this all idea of the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, this mentality of trying to climb yourself out of the rat race, it makes more sense to make the long-term investment of buying a program with buying it outright, never having to pay for it again unless you need updates. It's more beneficial to you to do that because, like you said, if you're someone working at Stater Brothers, saving your dollars, buying your first rental property, doing it by paper for a little bit, and eventually making the investment into a software, it's more beneficial to you because you're an employee already. So managing your money is more important in the early days versus just spending money on a monthly basis that's not paying anything down. It's the same mentality of buying a rental property. You're buying with the intention of paying it off so that you're cash flowing. So I really like the idea of owning software. I like the idea of both, but I mean, I want to be a middleman and try to do both for the small guys out there. And getting your take on owning software, not renting it.
Well, like I said, it becomes one of those things. It's like, what's more beneficial? Renting a car or owning a car.
Yeah.
The rental car you can always take back, but you're going to pay more for it.
Yeah.
And I guess that goes back to the idea of like the rentals. If you rent cars, it's because you don't take care of them versus owning one. For me, I mean, I drove vehicles that are 20 years old.
Yeah.
And for me, it's because, like here in Hawaii, the truck I drive is a 1999 F-350. I still drive it today.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's a tool. It's not a toy.
Yeah.
And try to explain that to people that the software you're buying, is a tool, not a toy. And for me, if it's online, I tend to think more, and again, it might be just because I'm old school this way, that anything online is a toy.
Yeah.
Versus a tool.
Definitely.
And so if you own it, you want to work it.
Yeah.
And I've also learned on my own that anytime I bought a program, either to invest in real estate, once I put my money on the table, the main goal was to get my money back.
Yeah.
By investing it into that program to get out of the program what they said I could get out of it.
Yeah.
So if I went out and bought a real estate program that cost me $1,000, the goal was I had to make $1,000 back to pay for that program, if not more.
Yeah.
So the thing with investing into your real estate program is that it's going to save you money. Now, with owning the software, the way it's going to pay you back is by utilizing it and not utilizing a management company that's going to charge you 10%.
Yeah.
Utilize the tax portion of it that doesn't make you have to hire an accountant or a CPA. So those are the added benefits coming back on your investment on the software that you own.
Definitely. So what would you say? I know we're always going to get the ones that are like, this is the way that it is. The online's the new way to go. It's cheaper if you look at it on a today basis versus a long term basis. What would you say? Like, let's say like the cheapest software out there right now, if you wanted like the full features of what our system will do, are easy. What this system will do, the cheapest you can find that right now online on a monthly basis is $10 a month. So $10 a month, that's $120 a year. Versus our easy, if it wasn't an online platform and it was buy it now, use it forever, for let's say $1,000, you're asking me to put $1,000 down today versus paying $10 per month over the next 10 years. Why is it more beneficial for me to do that as far as?
Well, I think that falls under an individual basis, because it falls under the individual basis in terms of this. What's more motivating? Paying $10 a month or saving $1,000?
Interesting. Okay.
So in the short term thinking, you're thinking, well, $10 a month is nothing.
Yeah.
$1,000 a month is or $1,000 investment is something. Well, yeah, you're right. So what's going to make you more motivated to get out there and make that money back? $10 a month or $1,000 investment? So like, again, it goes back to when I bought real estate programs, whether it be Carlton Sheets or Dave Delgado or Mike and Irene Milan, and be like, oh, you want to learn how to invest in real estate? Buy our program for $800. Okay. So I listened to your, 4 hours of conversation of what your program is going to teach me. So I'm going to put my $800 on the table. So my $800 on the table, I can't afford.
Yeah.
I need that $800 back. So I'm going to be motivated, and not everybody is, but like I said, what's more motivated?
Yeah.
The $10 a month or getting that $1,000 back?
Yeah. So that's a really cool way of looking at it. The idea of if you're a serious student, as Jim Rowe would put it, if you're a serious student, put your money where your mouth is type attitude of like, yes, I'm going to be successful at this, so I might as well start playing like the big boys and just make the long-term investment like you do with your first property.
That's right.
Definitely.
And just to give an example, this is what's really funny. Just as an example of the scenario, what I'm talking about, just so people understand it, because I understand that, well, what does that mean? $10 a month versus $1,000 investment. Okay, great. I bought a program by Mike and Irene Milan. They talked about buying REOs, real estate owned properties. And one of the areas they talked to focus on at the time was the HUD program. So I paid $800 for the program. I took the program home and I didn't put it on the shelf. I started reading it.
Yeah.
When I started reading it, I started finding out the details of dealing with REOs, real estate owned properties. And then I looked at the HUD program, which is housing administrative programs for buying foreclosures. So my goal was to get my $800 back, no matter what.
Yeah.
Once I got my $800 back, the program was nothing more than bonus after the fact. I wanted my money back.
Yeah.
So what I did is I took the lessons learned in that program and I went out and I actually started looking into REOs with the banks, and I started looking at the foreclosure with the banks. I didn't get anywhere with those because at the time, which was in the early 90s, the big boys were already eating that up. But this happened around 1993. So I went to a realtor who actually specialized in HUD homes. And I went and talked to her and I said, hey, I'm looking to invest in real estate. She says, okay, do you own real estate? Yeah, I own a couple of houses. It's like, okay, great. What are you looking for? And I said, bread and butter, 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses. And it's so funny because I was only like 25 years old at the time. This lady was probably in her late 40s, and she's looking at me like a little kid, and she's like, well, what do you want to pay? And I said, nothing. What do you want to put down? Nothing. Oh, you're another one of those guys. So she was familiar with guys trying to do this. And I said, listen, just show me what you have. I'll take a look at it. You don't have to drive me around. Just show me, give me the addresses, and I'll do a drive-by. So she says, fine. So she showed me a couple of, gave me a listing of a few properties. I looked at them. So I came up with one. And I told her, okay, I'm interested in this one particular property, and which is Corley Court. And she says, okay. She says, well, that's been on the market for 2 years. She says, it's a HUD-owned property. I said, fine. What's the price? She says, $87,000. I said, okay, great. 3-bedroom, 1-bath house in a neighborhood. It was a 22-year-old house at the time. I said, okay, great. She says, what do you want to offer? And I said, well, according to this program I'm learning right now, they said throw oddball numbers out there because even if it's 1 penny more, they have to accept it. And she's nodding her head looking at me like, whatever. So the asking price was $87,000. I offered some oddball number like $87,652.42. So she tells me, she says, if you're offering the asking price, we can drive it down there. If you're offering the asking price or above, we can drive it down there. They'll open it on the spot. And if nothing's been accepted, they'll accept your offer. I said, okay, great. So we drive all the way down there. She walks into the office, the HUD office, walks back out and says, okay, your offer's been accepted. Great. So we go back to her office, we fill out all the paperwork and everything else. She says, do not buy anything for the next 30 days. Fine. So when it was all said and done, I had to give her a $2,000 earnest money account. I had to give her $2,000 down to open escrow.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. So I give her $2,000 down, wait 45 days, I get approved for the loan, everything's good, we're closing escrow. So what happened was after escrow closed, when you buy a property, a HUD property, FHA property, you have to have money put into an impound account. Well, the impound account covers taxes and insurance for a year. Typically, that's 3% of the cost of the house.
Yeah.
So, for that particular house, $87,000, 3% of $87,000 is about $2,500. So, technically, I was supposed to put $2,500 into an impound account to cover taxes and insurance for a year. So, on a monthly basis, the payment would start replenishing that account as those payments were coming out. So I wasn't expecting to get my $2,000 deposit back.
Yeah.
I was expecting I was having to give additional monies.
Yeah.
As a result of it, because of the property,
Yeah.
I ended up getting a check back for $1,950.
Okay.
And I go back to the realtor. I said, "Hey, they gave me a check for $1,950." She says, "Yeah." I thought that was supposed to go towards the impound. She says, "Well, they filled up the impound for you."
Interesting.
So, not only was it a zero down, they basically paid me to buy the house.
Yeah.
So not only did I not get my $800 back from the program,
Yeah.
I got an additional $1,650 back.
Yeah.
So the program didn't cost me $800. It made me $1,600+
Yeah.
So that goes back to the real estate program. If you're investing the $1,000 and your mentality is to get that $1,000 back,
Yeah.
you're going to be more motivated to get that $1,000 back than to just paying $10 a month.
Definitely. What would your advice be on? Okay, I'm just starting out. I have no properties. I don't have anything. Is the software really necessary in the beginning, or do I do it by paper and pen in the beginning? Can you hear me?
No. I didn't get that. What were you saying?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
What's your idea? Your perspective on? I own nothing. I don't have a single property. Obviously, I'm going to get educated in real estate. Let's say I'm educated, but I don't have a software to manage real estate, and I don't have real estate yet. Would you recommend buying real estate, getting in it, doing it paper and pen in the beginning, and then buying a software down the line, or buying a software in the beginning and then a house?
Well, it depends. Here again, I mean, there's no need. It's almost like the whole idea, putting the carriage before the horse.
Yeah.
The horse pulls the carriage, not the carriage pulls the horse.
Yeah.
So you need to have, your idea of buying real estate and have real estate in order to need the software program to manage your real estate.
Yeah.
Now, with some of the items that you're actually working with right now, that incorporating the ideas of teaching people how to buy real estate, and there's plenty of avenues out there to learn how to buy real estate. Learning, it's one of those things that it's never a how to, it's always a why to.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge with most people, is that, people tend to want to invest in real estate, or let me rephrase that. People tend to like to invest in real estate, but the ones who want to invest in real estate, they do it.
Yeah.
The ones that like to invest in real estate, they talk about it. So the whole idea right here is that through your interactions of the program that you're doing right now, in promoting the idea of real estate software, as well as the podcast we've done in the past. I mean, we've talked about how to buy real estate.
Yeah.
And doing the educational program on teaching people how to buy real estate, it isn't one of those things that people need to learn how to buy it, I don't think. I think they need to understand more of why to buy it.
Got it.
And the idea is that once you buy it, then you work on towards managing it. So, you have one or two. You don't need a software program to manage one or two, because there's not enough in there. You're really not even going to benefit from it.
Yeah.
If you have one or two. It's not until you start accelerating onto owning multiple rental properties to get to the point of needing a software program to manage it.
Definitely. Totally makes sense. Well, I mean, that's a bunch of different topics that we talked about. I mean, going from the very beginning and coming with the idea. The Filemaker R Easy version of the software is going to be the very first software ever for, as far as perpetual software to own, as far as coming from the Maciels, is coming to market for the very first time soon. And we're creating this content, and I didn't want to be the only one basically being the face of the company. My father here, Chuck Maciel, he is the inventor, he's the designer of the idea of having software of real estate on your computer. I really honestly believe he probably came up with the very first one in the early 2000s, or late 2000s, late 90s I should say. But Steve wasn't really the ambitious one as far as taking it to market, and my dad being too busy, his hands in too many different locations as far as working at Staters, lawn care business, and also buying real estate on the side, to start a software company in the late 90s would have been very difficult, I would assume. So I want everyone to know that Chuck Maciel is 100% the face of our Easy. I'm just expediting it in 2021 and trying to build new technology around it in today's world with hopefully Microsoft Access down the line, but we're going to start with FileMaker for Windows, Mac, iPhone, and Android, and then all the way up to property management companies, and then down in the longer pipes, we have construction software for those DIYers that still, like my father, work on real estate themselves. Those that still look for deals, buy deals, fix up the properties themselves. We have a lot of cool softwares coming out pretty soon that will benefit a lot of those small guys in business still. So, Dad, I really want to say thank you for taking the time out and talking with me on that. I really enjoy talking with you. For everyone to know, my dad's in Hawaii right now. That's why we're doing this on FaceTime. My dad has a business in Hawaii, on Hilo, Hawaii. It's called Maciel Homes. You can look at our work at macielhomes.net. His phone number is right there on his t-shirt. You want to talk about Maciel Homes real quick, just so you can get a little...
Sure. I mean, the exposure there, too, it's one of those things that hopefully with this exposure, it will allow, kind of like the things we were talking about before, that a lot of people don't recognize that the big moguls economically in the world, the status says that 7 out of the top 10 richest people in the world, not America, in the world, made their money in real estate.
Yeah.
Okay, so 7 make it in real estate, 2 make it in business, and 1 makes it in inheritance. The funny thing about it is one of the things that we talked about before, and it's interesting in talking with people over the years and understanding, this is why I really enjoy talking about real estate, and I like talking about investing, because it really begins to open parts of your mind of understanding other areas of investing. And it's funny because last year, in talking with an associate, Jeremy Jones, about real estate, and it's funny because the time I spend driving my tractor around town doing weed abatement, I have an enormous amounts of time of just by myself thinking of ideas and concepts. But more so, it's funny how just the simplicity of people come to mind and how things are actually done. And it's kind of funny because having a conversation with Jeremy Jones one time, we're sitting there discussing about how people invest in real estate. And I tell him, I said, it's funny how no matter how wealthy you are, it doesn't matter your level of economics, you will always seek to invest something that is cheap.
Okay.
Now, what does that mean? So, what does that mean? That means that if you make, $40,000 a year, you're looking to invest in something that you can buy for probably, $50,000, $60,000 on a loan.
Yeah.
Versus if you make $10 million a year, what's cheap for you is probably $3 million.
Yeah.
So the conversation that I was having with him is I told him, I said it's kind of interesting because if you look at the history of some of the most successful people in real estate, and we'll take one of the most successful people that pretty much everybody knows worldwide is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump, when he first got investing in real estate, his dad was an investor in real estate. His dad built a lot of homes in low-income communities.
Yes.
Which is interesting. Low-income communities. You don't associate the idea of low income with the name Trump.
Yeah.
And yet, in the 70s, Donald Trump invested in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And in the Bronx in the 70s was low income.
Yes.
So, what people need to understand about real estate is that most people in general always think real estate, oh, lots of money, very big investment, very expensive. No, it really isn't. You just got to know where to focus. And the thing about it is it's the concept is simple. It's just not easy.
Yes.
And that's the problem that most people run up against, is they think this is too hard. Well, nobody said it was going to be easy. It's simple. The concept is simple. Find something that's reasonable, inexpensive, that you can invest into and improve the value of it and rent it out to create an income.
Yeah.
So that whole idea that a lot of people may fall in prey to the idea, well, I can't do it in my area. Okay, well, maybe you have to drive to another area. Maybe you have to drive to another state.
Definitely.
I mean, you know, and that's the whole thing of like building in Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know, that when you first came out to Hawaii, you know, at 18 years old, you couldn't afford to invest in California.
Yeah.
But you come to Hawaii, you get some exposure, and you find out some areas that are very affordable in Hawaii, which is actually a contradiction to the norm of what people think about Hawaii. It is that Hawaii, affordable, they don't go together.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they do go together. You know, you just got to know where to shop.
If it wasn't for Hawaii, I wouldn't have the cash I have today to do what I'm doing right now, to take a chance on myself. But like you said, like just educating people that Hawaii actually is pretty reasonable. But when we say Hawaii, we say the Big Island of Hawaii, and it's kind of where more of the what would you say? Affordable,
for people to come into,
yeah.
I mean, you know, and that's kind of like the idea. You know, when people talk about California, they don't think about Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
You know, they think of the big cities, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Yeah, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely do they think Riverside.
Yeah.
Rancho Cucamonga.
Moreno Valley.
Loma Banny. You know, those are the areas for affordable living type of deal.
Yeah.
For small investors to invest into. So, like for us coming to Hawaii, I mean, I've been in Hawaii now going on, 16 years, since 2005. And seeing the transition in Hawaii in pricing over those years. But, I would have to say that interesting how people develop their own fear by creating their own assumptions or facts.
Yeah.
Instead of researching to find out, what is the truth of it all?
Yeah.
And that's the part that's not easy.
Yeah.
You got to do some homework. You got to do some research. You got to venture out. I mean, because you stop and think for a minute. For me, I ventured out to Hawaii. Never been to Hawaii other than one time on vacation. But I come to Hawaii and within literally 2 days make the decision I'm going to invest in Hawaii.
Yeah.
I came in 2005, and in 2005 got my contractor's license and bought 19 properties.
Wow.
That's a big load to take on. But it wasn't like I went from Riverside and went, 20 miles down the street.
Yeah.
I ventured across the pond.
Yeah.
The opposite end of the United States.
Uh-huh.
To venture as an investment into myself as a personal challenge to see if I can pull this off.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, I mean, there's been, don't get me wrong, there's been a lot of challenges. There's been a lot of stress in it. But the end result was I was able to accomplish what my goal was.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that being exposed to that idea and that concept, like I said, $10 a month, not really motivating. Put $1,000 on the table, you're gonna wake up.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So me coming to Hawaii was that wake up. You're either gonna do it or you're not.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that whole scenario, do or die.
Yeah.
And the fortunate thing about it is for me, I started off over here, buying in an affordable area, building affordable homes, and over time it increased. I went through the correction of 2008 and had to re-engineer my whole structure of building houses, which was fine. Made a lot of great people, met a lot of friends, and as I got over the hump of the 8, 9, 10, 11 economy, and stayed and stuck to my guns,
Yeah.
and really had to become super conservative, not going out there living an elaborate life and exploiting my economics, and buckle down and learn alternatives to how to save money, which in turn made money,
Yeah.
which in turn allowed me to invest more money. And I have to say that that's probably where the biggest challenge for young investors is going to be, is that, yes, there'll be times you're going to have to bust your hump.
Yeah.
Yes, there's going to be times you're going to have to sacrifice and not hang out with the buddies.
Yeah.
And go out and play. Yeah. And yes, it may be 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, you will be victorious in the end.
Definitely.
Because here I am today. In 2005, I was building houses that sold for $250,000.
Yeah.
Today, we're building houses that sell for $750,000.
Yeah.
We're only talking about 16 years. Not a lot of time. Unless you're 20 years old, it sounds like forever. But in the realm of life, it's a very small time frame to discuss. And here we are now. I mean, we're building. I think the house we're doing currently is number 32.
Wow. Yeah, I was. I mean, like you said, I graduated in 2016. My dad did mention I did go out there in the end of 2016, because I graduated in 2016 in June. And then we spent California. We had the family business, driving tractors for the city in California. I went out there 16, 17, 18, and then part of 19 I came back. So I was there for and then when we say years, the crazy thing is that I put in perspective is like that was 3 years and 2 months, but in reality that was only about a year and a half, maybe 2 years of actual time of being in Hawaii, but it ate up 3 years time because how much stuff we actually do. When you put it in that perspective, is like what I was able to do with the money that I invested in 3 years time, but the reality of the work actually working was nowhere near the 3 years. It was actually only maybe a year and a half, if that, of actual work. But like Gary Vee says, talking with my father on this and investing, and I understand it's a slow game, and I started early. I pulled out early, but it's I learned a lot growing up, and I just feel that, like you said, putting the $10 down or $1,000 down, and what I'm doing right now is I swallowed my pride, and I'm taking a bet on myself, and I'm putting all the money down to see what I can do on my own. It's not to prove a point or anything, but like you said about like going to Hawaii and taking a bet and just seeing what you can do. I'd rather take a bet when I'm in my early 20s than when I'm in my late 40s or whatever. So that's what we're doing now.
That's the biggest thing. Most people never do that. They never take that bet on themselves.
Yeah.
And then they end up in their 40s and 50s thinking, what if?
Yeah, what if? And Gary Vee talks about this what if scenario, and people clocking out at 50, 55, 60. It's like we're going to live a lot longer. We're doing a lot more with our time now. So the perspective of me pulling out of my 20s, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I still have another 80 years to try and make it work. So it's like
and that's the biggest thing right there too. You pulled out to try something. If it works, awesome. And if it doesn't, you can always go back.
Yeah, I mean the trades that I learned growing up. I mean, I gotta say, I mean, I learned a lot growing up. Learning tools at an early age helps a lot. I know that, but really buckling down, like you said, not going out with friends and sacrificing that, not meeting new people. You take that sacrifice, but if you really dedicate the time and the study time and learning something and creating a skill set, it's a skill set that I'll have for a lifetime. I'll never forget how to build a home. I'll never forget how to do
Absolutely.
specific things. So like you said, same thing with guys going to college. Like if you have that idea and you're not feeling college, pull out and take a chance on yourself. You can always go back.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the biggest challenge right there. That I think the biggest thing that we as a society have lost is belief in ourselves.
Yes.
And I think what's happened is people have gotten to the point where, you know, they become so conditioned that, you know, it's funny because we're going to go back to a little bit of education of schooling. You know, as a little kid, before you go to school, you don't comprehend the word no. All you know is that you're going to do no matter what. And when they say no, you keep trying to do it.
Yeah.
Then you go to school, and they conform you to learn, you know, what you can and cannot do. Who
Yeah.
are they to tell you what you can and cannot do?
Yeah.
You know, and that's when you start losing that self drive of who you are, and the whole idea that you know, it's funny how in school, up until you graduate high school or until you graduate college, you have A, B, C, D, fail.
Yeah.
And yet for some reason, when adults leave school, it's always only A, pass, fail.
Yeah.
They lose the other three in between.
Yeah.
And I never understood that idea that why is it as a pass or fail as an adult, but in school you were taught there's 5 levels before you hit failure.
Yeah.
And even then you didn't fail. You can do makeup.
Yeah.
So it just I think what it is that, you know, people recognizing that they've allowed the system to embed into them what they can and cannot do, instead of just like, you know what, no, look inside,
Yeah.
try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, try something else.
Yeah, and that's not even saying going as far as occupation, as far as being a renter too. Take a chance and figure out, like, build your credit, save the money, put a down payment on a house, make the investment in yourself to pay down an asset instead of having the liability of this rent every month. Not to say that owning a home is a 100% asset. It's a liability in the beginning, but over time, when you hit that 65, 70 years old, it becomes an asset down the line.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So-
And those are some of the frustrating things to listen to people talk about, how they struggle with that. But it's funny how just slight, you know, and we're dropping names of people over that we've learned from. You know,
Yeah,
you're talking about Gary Vayner, and I'm talking about, you know, Robert Kiyosaki. And it's so funny because one of the biggest things I learned at a very early age, at like 21 years old, Tony Robbins always made this comment. He says, here you are today. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same thing.
yeah,
5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep receiving the same thing. He says, but today, if you just make a slight 1 degree change in your behavior, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, you're in a place you never even imagined. And the thing about it is I think the biggest challenge is people don't understand, what is that 1% change?
yeah,
Well, that 1% change can be as simple as reading a book,
yep,
meeting somebody that's influential, meeting somebody more intelligent than you are. And like I said before, you know, when I talk to people in these seminars that I do, you know, if you walk into the room and you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Look in the mirror and consciously say, you're the dumbest MF you've ever met.
Yeah.
And believe that. And from that day forward, you'll recognize that you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Shut up.
Yeah.
Listen, watch, and learn.
Definitely.
People will share information that they don't even know they're sharing with you. But if you just yammer your mouth, they're not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
And again, 1% change, very, very minor change in your behavior changes where you end up. And the thing about it is that most people, young people, I get this. Remember, I was young at one time too. You think 20 years is forever.
Yeah.
Blink of an eye. And when you talk to people, say, hey, you remember when you were in elementary school? Yeah. How long ago was that? 12 years ago. How long ago does it feel like?
Yeah.
Yesterday. Exactly. Yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That 1% is going to be yesterday in 20 years.
Yes.
So those are some of the biggest things. And I really hope that people can actually take the nuggets out of this conversation that we're having, because, there's a lot of nuggets in that conversation, ranging everywhere from real estate to business to psychology to personal development to improving yourself. And again, I know you're working on the software program to help people out, to help them streamline what they're doing. But along the way, it's kind of like your shirt. Think.
Yep.
Everybody needs to do that once in a while.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest challenge, that people don't want to take the time to think. And as Henry Ford said, one of the hardest jobs a person can do is think.
Yep.
Hence the reason why so few engage in it.
Definitely. It's funny. It's interesting.
Yeah. I'm really glad to be part of this, and I'm really glad that you're actually getting this out there and sharing it with people. And I really hope, from my heart, from the deepest part of my heart, dude, that people can take from this.
Most definitely.
And benefit from it.
I really think this could be divided up into multiple different types of content channels, as far as from software, business, to even motivation, or just education for that matter as well.
Exposure.
Yeah. I mean,
definitely.
between the Maciel Holmes YouTube channel, Think Studio's gonna have a YouTube channel, my own personal social media accounts. My dad's not on social media; he doesn't interact with it. But I mean, the few times we get him on camera is how he contributes to the social platforms. So I kind of do everything in the middle, in between. What's going on right now? Like before I end the recording, anything you have for sale in Hawaii? What are you doing out there? What's coming up?
Well, we actually got this really over-the-top house that we're building down by the water in Hawaiian Paradise Park right now. This one is probably the most grandiose house that we've done thus far. It's the Jumbo Lauhala with the sound system and the TVs and everything. We're actually waiting for our permits to come in for our gazebo, which is going to have a built-in barbecue, a bar, TV, sound system, and then one of the most unique things we're going to do that everybody seems to be so impressed by is that we're actually taking the front lanai, cutting the floor out, and putting a jacuzzi underneath the lanai where the floor covers it back up. So when you walk on the lanai, you don't see it, but then you open this trap door and you have a jacuzzi that you can step into on the lanai.
It's so cool.
So this one, we also got a rock wall. And getting the exposure on it is kind of funny because we're hoping that we get some exposure online that will actually showcase it to people to kind of like, I guess, step up to what our vision is of a custom home could be over here.
Most definitely. So that's the large Lahala. That's the 3,000 square foot under roof one.
Yeah, 3,000 foot under the house, under the roof, 2-car garage, detached, and then we have a 16 by 16 gazebo, which is a pretty good sized gazebo.
Definitely.
We're still working on affordable homes for locals, because we don't want to forget about them. We got the projects up on Gardenia that we're going to be focusing on later on this year. That's going to assist with the locals being able to get into homes.
Yeah.
We're also looking down now in the Hawaiian Beach area, which is now the new Ainaloa area, because of economics, because Ainaloa has kind of edged up on the pricing that's affecting locals, where they can't really afford, the group of people that can afford Ainaloa now are getting priced out.
Yeah.
So now we're moving to Hawaiian beaches. So we want to try and be ahead of that curve, so that we can keep trying to provide homes for the affordable level. And that's what we're working on right now.
Sweet. Cool deal. All right. Well, I'm going to end the recording now. For anyone that listened to everything, thank you very much. I'm definitely going to be cutting this video / audio up into multiple different sections for multiple different platforms: YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. This will be on the Maciel Homes YouTube channel. You can also check my dad out, Chuck Maciel, at macielhomes.net. His phone number is right there on his t-shirt if you need to contact him, or email and contact information is also on macielhomes.net. And you can reach me at thethink.studio for my website, and then Think Studio's YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.